Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tzadik Hey Amud Aleph, the new Mishnah on the top. The Mishnah contrasts the Korban Pesach Rishon with the Korban Pesach Sheni in explaining the difference between the two. Says the Mishnah, Ma bein Pesach Harishon LaSheni. What is the difference between the two? Harishon Oser B'Bal Yeroi B'Bal Yemotzei VeHasheni Chomet U'Matzah Imo B'Bayis. The first Korban Pesach requires that you don't have any chametz in your possession. There's an Isser, a lava, Bal Yeroi and Bal Yemotzei. Whereas when it comes to the Pesach Sheni, you can have chametz and matzah together. Harishon ton halil ba'achilosoi, v'hasheni eino ton halil ba'achilosoi. In the Korban Pesach Rishon on Yudale ben Nisan, it's required to sing halil b'shas di achila. Masha'en kain Pesach Sheni. The Mishnah now lists three things that are the same. Zeh v'zeh ton halil ba'asiyason. In regards to then doing the avoida b'shas, the avoida, both Korban Rishon and Korban Pesach Sheni require to sing halil. V'necholim tzli al matzah u'morim, and that it be eaten roasted together with matzah and moror. That's the same both by Korban Pesach Rishon as well as Korban Pesach Sheni. V'doichin es HaShabbos, when you daled b'Nisan comes out to be Shabbos, where doiches HaShabbos, we bring the Korban Pesach Rishon. Similarly, when you daled b'Iyar falls out to be on Shabbos, we also will bring the Korban Pesach Sheni. The Gemara now brings a Braisa, Tonu Rabbanon, and it brings the pasuk that states in regards to Korban Pesach the following three things that are going to be similar to the Korban Pesach Rishon, and then it states a klal. I'll read you the psukim. It says, B'chodesh Hasheni, in regards to the second Korban Pesach, the second month in Iyar, Ba'arbosar Yoim Bein harboim yasu oisoi. Al matzahs u'morim yoichluhu. You shall eat it with matzah and moror. The next passage goes on to say, Lo yashiu mimenu ad boiker. Do not leave it until the morning. And the passage goes on to say, Ve'etzem lo yishburu boi, and shall not break the bone. Finally, the passage concludes, Kikol chukas ha'pesach yasu oisoi. So the pasuk that we just read in regards to Korban Pesach Sheni lists three things that make it so that it's similar to Korban Pesach Rishon. First one states over here, they shall eat with matzah and moror. So the second thing is that it shall not be left over. And the third thing, you shall not break its bone. All of those three things are found in the Korban Pesach Rishon. The conclusion is a general statement. And it states, Kechol chukas ha-pesach ya'asu oisoi. So the Gemara wants to work out in the Braisa, what are the rules that we can be determined that are included in the Korban Pesach Sheni as it is in the Korban Pesach Rishon, as follows. Ton Rabbon, Kechol chukos ha-pesach ya'asu oisoi. Quoting the end of that verse. B'mitzvah she begufoi hakozim medaber. The mitzvah that's intrinsic to the Korban Pesach, that's what we're talking about. In other words, the same way that when it comes to those things that are intrinsic, for example, the avoida, or eating the Korban Pesach with roasted, that should be roasted, that's intrinsic. So that will apply equally to then Korban Pesach Sheni. Mitzvah sha'al gufon minayin. What about things that are not intrinsic, but are me'al gufon, that are part, but not intrinsic to the Korban Pesach? Where do I know that's also included in the Pesach Sheni? Talmud loymar al matzas u'morim yoichlu. The pasuk says, "You shall eat the Korban Pesach Sheni with matzah and moror." So even though the matzah and moror is not the actual korban, but since it goes together with the korban, it's included. Yochel, I might think afilu mitzvah sheloi al yegufoi. I might think to include even mitzvahs that are not al gufoi. Talmud loymar, therefore the pasuk states, ve'etzem lo yishburu boy. You shall not break the bone. Mashviras ha'etzem miyuchod mitzvah shebegufo. Afkol mitzvah shebegufo. Just as breaking the bone is intrinsic to the mitzvah itself, so too then it has to be everything that's intrinsic also, and not something that is totally superfluous, something that's totally exterior and external to the mitzvah. That's the Tanakama of the Brisa. Isi ben Yehuda Imer, he argues on the Tanakama and he says, Yasu oisoi. That granted you need a generalization, and therefore you need the pasuk to say Kechol Chukas HaPesach, but it says Yasu oisoi comes to emphasize what? The mitzvah shebegufa kasem medaber. The fact that it adds Yasu oisoi comes to say specifically that which is intrinsic to the mitzvah. In other words, Rabbi Isi ben Yehuda argues on the Tanakama and says you do not need the other verses to explain that it has to be intrinsic to the Korban Pesach. You don't need the pasuk of the etzem yishbu bo. The very fact that you have this pasuk of Yasu oiso teaches me that that which is intrinsic to Korban. Plus, the very fact that it says matzah umarim yochlu comes to teach that which is also included in the Korban, even if it's not intrinsic, but that which is exterior completely to the Korban, that certainly is excluded from Korban Pesach Sheni. So it comes out that indeed we have both the Tanakama and Rabbi Isi ben Yehuda are both saying the same thing in terms of that which is intrinsic to the Korban Pesach, namely, for example, that which is roasted to the Korban Pesach. That's certainly going to then be a mitzvah that's going to be applicable to Korban Pesach Sheni. And also, that which is included, like matzah umaror, will also then be in the Korban Pesach Sheni, to the exclusion of that which is completely exterior. And therefore, those things that are exterior, like chametz and matzah, that is not going to apply to Korban Pesach Sheni. The difference between the Tanakama and Isi ben Yehuda is how to learn it out. Where Isi ben Yehuda says, the very fact that the Yasu oisoi, that teaches me that which is intrinsic. Where do we know that which is also going to be also included in the Korban Pesach, but it's not intrinsic? That we know from the pasuk matzah umaror yochlu, which is something that's eaten with the Korban Pesach, even though it's not intrinsic, it's not the actual Korban Pesach itself, but it's included in that which is also with the Korban Pesach, and therefore that's included in the Pesach Sheni as well. The Gemara brings back what it stated before, Yochel af mitzvah shel loy al gufoi. The Gemara asked, after it said in the Tanakama, I might think that even mitzvah loy al gufoi, that followed when it's spoken about mitzvahs that were al gufoi. The pasuk that he brought was that it stated al matzahs umaru yochlu. So that we already know that's the mitzvahs that are al gufay. Why then did the Brisa ask, even, I might think, mitzvahs that are shaloi al gufay? Answers the Gemara. So the Gemara asks, ha'amris mitzvah shebegufa kaz medaber. You already said the mitzvahs that begufa kaz medaber. Why should I think mitzvah shaloi al gufay could be also included, things that are typically exterior, like chametz and matzah? Hachi kamar. The Gemara explains the meaning of the Brisa. Hashto de amris al matzah mor yochlu. Now that you had stated that the pasuk says matzah mor yochluhu, which is not intrinsic to the Korban Pesach, and still the pasuk comes and say matzah mor yochlu, you still include in Korban Pesach Sheni. Then al yasu oisoi lav dafkahu. Then when it's stated in the end of the pasuk yasu oisoi, it's not dafka. That has to be dafka intrinsic to the Korban to be included in Korban Pesach Sheni. Ema, therefore I might think, Havalei kifrat v'chlal v'nase klal moisif ala prat. Then, therefore I have a klal uprat, and since I have, or pratu klal, and since I have the klal at the end of the pasuk yasu oiso, comes to then add to the prat. Va'afilu kol milinami, even everything that's shaloi al gufoy would also be included. Komash malan, it's not. Isi ben Yehuda asks the Gemara, "Hi etzem my ovid lay." What does he do with the etzem, the pasuk that says you should not break the bone? Hare, he already stated that the fact is Yasu Oiso includes everything that's intrinsic to the Korban Pesach. So we already know you cannot break the bone in the Korban Pesach Sheni. Why does the Pasuk have to state it Befeirush? Says the Gemara, Mi Boile needs it. Le'echad etzem sheyesh boy moyach ve'echad etzem she'ein boy mach. To include even a bone that does not have marrow inside of it. Whether it has marrow or not is going to be included in this prohibition of breaking the bone. V'rabbonon hayasu oisoi my avile. Grant the Rabbonon need the generalization, like we said before, that it states in the pasuk. But why yasu oisoi? Says the Gemara, they needed she'ein shoichdin is a pesach ala yochid, not to shech the Korban Pesach lechatchila on an individual. The kama de eshela adure mahadrinin. So long as we're able to go after others and include more than one person in the Korban Pesach Sheni also we shall do. The Gemara now brings a brayso tonu rabbanan kechol chukas haPesach yasu oisoi. That which we said in the end of that pasuk, and all of the statutes that are in the Pesach, you shall do as you did in the Korban Pesach Rishon. Yachol, I might think, says the Brayso, Keshem Sha'arishon Osur, Bevayer Bayimatze Kach Sheni Osur Bayer Motzeh. The same way that when it comes to the Korban Pesach Rishon, you cannot have chametz with your matzah. I might think that's applicable as well with the Korban Pesach Sheni. Talmud loymar al matzas umarorim yoichluhu. Therefore, the pasuk says when it comes to Korban Pesach Sheni umatzah umarorim. That means it has to have some sort of connection to the actual korban itself. And that which is exterior, like the case of matzah and mora, that's not included in Pesach Sheni. Ve'en li elo mitzvahs aseh. I only know mitzvahs aseh, like it says over here, matzahs umorer yoichlu, a positive command. Mitzvahs lo yisaseh minayin. How do I know that mitzvahs lo yisaseh is also going to then be included? Talmud loymar. Lo yashiru mimenu ad boiker. Therefore, have the pasuk in regards to Korban Pesach Sheni. It says you shall not leave over any of the meat of the Korban Pesach Sheni. So here's a loisase. Ask the Gemara, ve'ein li elo mitzvahs loisase nitik laase. That's a loisase that has a remedy that if you did leave it over a book in the morning, then you shall burn it. So that's a lav nitik laase. But what about a regular lav? Mitzvahs loisase gomor minayin. Where do I know that's also true? You shall not break the bone, which is a lav gomor. Ma haprat mefurash says asay veloisashe nitla asay veloisase gomor. So now we have all three categories that we're going to say are going to be learned out. We have the mitzvahs asay, the mitzvah loisa asay shenitik la asay, and mitzvah loisa asay gomor. All of those things we learn out from these three psukim. Bichlale the mitzvahs umatumori my kamarabi. The Gemara says that which it comes to be added from matzah umori, what is it coming to include? The Gemara says it comes to include sli eish. Just like matzah umori, we said is a positive command, so too is a positive command that it should then be eaten tzli eish, that it be roasted. Bifratel my mimayle, was it coming to, when it comes to mefaret, was it coming to exclude? Hashvasa sa'or, it comes to exclude that which is exterior, that is getting rid of the sa'or, the chametz. Ask the Gemara epuch, maybe you should say the opposite, that the hashvasa sa'or is included and the matzah mor is going to be excluded. Says the Gemara, that tzli is going to be excluded. Says the Gemara, Ana mitzvahs the gufa adif. I prefer that which mitzvahs are intrinsic to be included and that which is exterior to be excluded. That which he said the klal of the lo yashiu, you should not leave over the meat of the Korban Pesach Sheni. It's a la shenitik la'aseh. What does that come to include? Says Gemara, lo tzotzi mimenu, you should not take out the meat of the Korban Pesach from its place where it's supposed to be eaten. And if you did, then you have a nitik asay and asay to then bring it back to that place where you shall eat it. Bifratel maikom ma'ilei, the specific was to come to exclude. when it says these words, that you shall not leave over the meat until the morning. Lo ye'ro v'lo yimotzei. You shall not see, it should not be seen or should not be found, the chametz. And the nitik la'aseh would be, if you did find it, then you shall burn it. Ask the Gemara the same question, epuch. Why don't we say the exact opposite? Say, when it comes to bal yer bal yimotzei, that's included. And when it comes to that which it states, lo totziu mimenu, that's coming to be excluded. Says the Gemara, Ana mitzvah de gufei adif. I prefer a mitzvah that is intrinsic to the Korban Pesach to be included, and therefore lo totziu mimenu is intrinsic to the meat of the Korban Pesach. It should not be taken out of its place to be eaten. Bichlal de etzem lo yishbu boy, the lav gamor of etzem, that you shall not break the bone, that general lav gamor. Ask the Gemara, my kamarabe, was it coming to include on top of tzadik heyamid beis? Answers the Gemara, al toichlu mimenu, no, you shall not eat that which is not completely roasted. It's only partially roasted. Bifratel, my kamamaite, that which is specific, was it coming to exclude? When it says, you shall not break the bone of the Korban Pesach. What is it coming to exclude? Answers the Gemara, lo tishchat al chametz dam zivchi. You shall not have in your possession the chametz when you're bringing the Korban Pesach. So even though we said before that anyways the bal yer bal yimotzei is excluded, here you might think this is the b'shas the avoida of the shchita. That might be different. Therefore, Talmud Lomar, it's excluded. Ask the Gemara, epuch. Why don't we say the opposite? Let's say that when it comes to lo tishchan al chametz dam zivchi, that's included. And when it comes to that which we say al toichlu mimenu no, that's coming to be excluded. Answer the more again. Anna mitzvah de gufei adi. I prefer to include a mitzvah that is intrinsic to the Korban Pesach itself, and therefore not to eat that which is only partially roasted, that's intrinsic to the Korban Pesach, and therefore that is included.